Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back with another video. If I told you the famous 4% rule was contrived for the unluckiest retired person in the finale 100 years, would you still build your whole retirement around it? Plus, while you're hush healthy enough to enjoy it, today I'll display you a smarter way to withdraw so you can pass more safely. If you're 55, 60, 70, or beyond here in the United States, this video is for you. Frankly, for decades, citizenry have learned just take 4% a year from pretty much your investing, adjust for rising prices, and you'll be fine. But here's the problem. Flush, the creator of the 4% rule, say it was meant as a floor, a worst-case ultra-conservative number, not a universal commandment for every retiree. So today, we're leaving to unpack three big ideas: what the 4% rule genuinely was designed to do and why it's a worst-case scenario, the real drivers that determine how much you can safely retreat, and a chic, more flexible withdrawal strategy, including guardrails and pale that can often let you start closer to 5% or evening more instead of being locked at 4%. The thing is, stick with me because in the middle of this video, I'll show you a simple example where being flexile cuts the savings you need by over $1,000 without increasing your hazard of running out of money. What's more, what the 4% rule really is. Let's start with the 4% rule itself. Dorsum in the 1990s, a financial planner named Bill Ben, looked at U.S. marketplace chronicle stocks and bonds going all the way back to the early 1900s. He asked a very specific question. If someone retired and wanted their money to finale 30 years, what's the high starting percentage they could retreat, then increase with inflation every 12 months? 2, still not run out of money, even if they withdraw at the worst possible time. Based on the datum he had back then, that number come about to a little over 4%. It got rounded down and became famed as the 4% rule. Naturally, here's the key thing almost everyone forgets. That 4% number was built around a worst-case retired person, the person who had the very worst start date in the data set. Also, it assumed they took the same inflation-adjusted income every year, no matter what the market did. And it assumed a fixed 30-year retirement, not your actual living, which may be short or long. Here's why this matters. Fast forward to today. Benan has updated his research with more data and more diversified portfolio. He now estimates the worst-case safe begin withdrawal rate for a 30-year retirement is around 4.7%. And he said that many retirees could realistically start finisher to 5% or even a bit higher depending on markets and portfolio design. At the end of the day, so if the guy who invented the 4% rule is saying, hey folks, that was the conservative floor, why are we all treating it ilk a ceiling, the real goal, not just don't run out? I know nobody want to be 85 years old staring at an empty account statement. That care is real. On top of that, there's another risk people in their 60s and 70s rarely talk about. The thing is, the risk of underspending, of living your healthiest years too cautiously, dying with a huge balance, and realizing you could have traveled more, given more, enjoyed your money more. Let me put it this way. Research on real retire shows most citizenry do not pass a flat inflation-adjusted amount forever. Dispersal usually peaks in the early active agent years and then naturally slows in the 70s and 80s as life gets simpler. So what does this mean? So the real finish isn't just never run out. It's make your money last and in reality enjoy your money while you're hush capable to use it. Definitely, that's what a chic climb down strategy is all about. What truly drives a safe climb down rate? Often now, before we leap into guardrails and pale, I want to give you a simpleton framework. There are 6 big levers that really drive how much you can safely spend from your portfolio in retirement. Understanding these will give you confidence when you hear scary headlines, how long your retirement lasts. And here's the thing, number 1 is your clip purview. Naturally, if you withdraw at 65 and living anticipation at 65 in the US is now close to 20 more eld on norm, that acquire you roughly to your mid-80s. Many planners will develop an extra years as a safety margin. Research shows for shorter retirement, say 20 age, a safe starting charge per unit in the historical data has much been around 5 to 5.5%. For long retirements, 40 to 45 old age, safe starting rate drop closer to 3.3 to 3.5%. As a 60-year-old planning for 35 to 40 years, so it doesn't make sense for a 75-year-old with a 15-year view to use the exact same rule. Market returns and succession risk. Number 2 is market returns and sequence risk. Let me put it this way. Also, Two retirees could norm the same income tax return over 30 years. But if one get bad markets early while pickings climb down, their portfolio can be permanently damaged. What we're seeing is the other who gets good markets early may end up with far more money even with the same average return. That's why we tending about when returns show up, not just the average. Figure 3 is inflation. We've all felt how higher prices squeeze a fixed income. Safe withdrawal research typically assumes you increase your withdrawals every year by inflation, just ilk Social Security's cost of life adjustments. In 2026, for example, Social Security checks rose about 2.8%, bringing the average retired worker benefit to just over $2,000 a month. High rising prices early in retirement is especially dangerous. It forces you to pulling out more dollars from a portfolio that may also be down. Number 4 is your asset allocation. Studies from Fornoon Adept and others show that portfolios with about 30 to 50% stocks and the rest in bond and cash much support higher safe climb down rates than portfolios that are either exceedingly conservativist or extremely aggressive. Too conservative and you may not dungeon up with inflation. No doubt too aggressive and volatility plus withdrawal can create big risks. Number 5 is how flexible your spending is. If you insist on never adjusting ever, then your safe charge per unit has to be let down. But if you're willing to skip and rising prices raise after a bad marketplace year, or trim traveling or luxury spending when times are rough in, research shows your safe starting charge per unit can increase significantly, often by to 1.5 percentage point or more. Let me put it this way. To be honest, we'll see numbers in a minute. Number 6 is friction, fees, taxes, and behavior. Also, high fee investment or expensive advisors can quietly drag down your safe withdrawal rate. Inefficient tax planning can cause you to pull out more than you truly need. And panic selling and downturns can blow up any program. Even a 1% fee can lower sustainable back down rates by roughly 1/3% or so over time. So fundamentally, clip horizon, succession risk, rising prices, plus mix, flexibleness, and frictions. Once you see those, that old 4% formula suddenly looks way too simplistic. Think about it this way. In a moment, I'll show you a real number instance where using a smart guardrail assists a retiree need over $100,000 less in savings to get the same income. Don't go anywhere. New research. Why flexibility beats a rigid 4%. Let's talk about what the latest U.S. inquiry is telling us, because this is where things get exciting. Morning Ace recently updated their State of Retirement Income Report for 2026, use forward-looking estimates instead of just past history. They discover that for a 30-year retirement with a 90% chance of success, the highest rigid starting withdrawal rate is about 3.9%. If you're thinking, wait, 3.9% is lower than 4%. You're right, that's the price of building in a very high success charge per unit with no flexibleness. The reality is, but then they tested flexible strategies, things like guardrail that adjust back down when your portfolio gets too high or too low, or rules where you skip and rising prices raise after a bad year in the market. Now here's where it gets good. With this light flexibleness, Morningstar found safe, starting withdrawal rates could jump up to around 5.7 to 6% while still maintaining strong success rates. At the same clip, Bill Banan's newer work suggests that for diversified portfolio, a worst-case starting rate around 4.7% hush holds up, and many scenarios could support something closer to 5.5 or more. So on one side, you've got super conservative numbers like 3.9% if you refuse to ear set. Now, here's where it gets good. Plus, on the other side, you've got inquiry showing that if you're willing to be a little human, tighten your belt modestly in bad years, you can much start finisher to 5% to 6% and still be okay. That's a gigantic difference in how much you can relish in your 60s and early 70s. Let's walk through a simplified example using US-style numbers just to see how this plays out. What's more, imagine Mary, age 62, planning a 30-year retirement. Indeed, she wants an extra to $25,000 per year from her portfolio on top of Social Security. Right now, the average Social Security check is a bit over $2,000 a calendar month, or about $24,000 a year. At the end of the day, so Mary shoots for numbers roughly $49,000 sum. If Mary insists on a rigid 4% pattern, she needs $25,000 divided by 0.04 equals $625,000 invested. But if she's volition to use a flexible guardrail approach, for example, start at about 5.5 to 6% and skip rising prices raises after bad old age, as Morningstar's research suggests. Sheep Power be able to get that same $25,000 income with closer to $425,000 to $450,000 invest, depending on the exact pattern in markets. We're talking about needing well over $150,000 less in savings for the same lifestyle, just by adding a little flexibleness or else of being chained to a strict worst-case rule. Now, of course, I'm simplifying and your situation will be different. Generally, this is education, not personal advice, but you can see how powerful a smarter climb-down program can be. For some of you, that might be the difference between, I guess I piece of work until 70 and, hey, I might actually be able to retire at 65 and still take that trip with my grandkids. Making it real, the PALE strategy. Okay, let's talk about a tool that can make this flexibility feel safer and more tangible. The bucket strategy. Buckets don't magically create money, but they change how risk displays up so you're not forced to sell stocks in a crash just to pay the electric bill. The 3 buckets. Consider of your money in 3 simple buckets. Generally, bucket for 1, immediate payment and short-term ELD 1 to 3. Actually, 1 to 3 years of basic spending parked in cash, money markets, or very short-term bonds. This is your sleep at night money. Bucket 2, income and safety, old age 4 to 10, intermediate term bonds, CDs, possibly some conservativist income fund. This refills bucket full 1 over clip. Bucket 3, ontogeny, years 10 plus, stocks and ontogeny assets. Sometimes this is money you don't plan to touch for a decade or more. Inquiry shows that time segmenting like this can reduce the impact of bad early market ELD and support higher safe withdrawal rates, particularly when combined with a planned spend down of principal. Some surveys find that combining bucketful style approaches with flexibility can addition sustainable starting withdrawal rates by roughly 0.7 to 1.5 percentage points or more, while letting you use 10 to 25% less total savings for the same lifestyle. Importantly, let me tell you about a composite client I'll call Retired Dave. Dave is 68. Here's the bottom line. He and his wife have about $500,000 in savings and roughly $24,000 a year from Social Security, right about the national average. When Dave first came in, he'd heard about the 4% rule. In fact, he figured 4% of $500,000 is $20,000. Add that to his $24,000 sociable security, and he gets about $44,000 a 12-month. Notably, he told me, "John, that's okay, but it's tight. I'd actually ilk closer to $50,000 in these first, really, 10 to 15 years while my knees work." Here's what we did conceptually. We set up bucket, 2 years of expense in cash, several more in bond, and the residue in diversified stocks. We started with a higher back-down rate in the early years, closer to 5.5%, with a rule that if markets had a genuinely bad year, he'd pause his raise the following year. But here's what's interesting. We agreed he was okay spending some rule over clip, not trying to die with the demand same account balance. The result in our models, Dave could spend finisher to what he desire in his active ELD, check within reasonable risk, and Hush have a strong fortune of his money lasting well into his 90s. Again, that's a pretty much framework, not a promise. But the point is, buckets plus guardrails oftentimes give you permission to live a little rather of clinging to the most pessimistic scenario. Let me ask you, would you rather plan your entire retirement as if you're guaranteed to be the most unlucky retired person in history, or have a flexile plan that adjusts along the way? Sometimes, all right, let's bring this home with some practical steps you can issue even if you never hire an advisor. Grab a notepad. I'll walk you through this slowly. Step 1, estimate your time horizon. First, think in ranges, not exact dates. If you're 65 now, norm life expectancy at birth is about 79 in the US. But if you've already made it to 65, your odds of life into your mid-80s or beyond are pretty good, peculiarly for women. Many planners will model to age 90 or evening 95. Ask yourself, do I want to program to 90-95 longer? What we're seeing is, the longer you plan, the more conservative your initial withdrawal should be. Also, step 2, tally guarantee income. Adjacent, Write down your expected social protection income. Norm retired PROL benefits are just over $2,000 per month in 2026, but your number may be higher or let down. And any pensions or annuities, these are your floor. The more of your basics that are covered by guarantee income, the more flexible you can likely be with your investments. Interestingly, step 3, decide how flexible you're willing to be. To be honest now, be honest with yourself. Also, could you skip an inflation raise in a bad year? If market are ugly, cut 5 to 10%, kind of discretionary outgo, travel, gifts, hobbies. If the solution is yes, the research says you may not need to stick to a stiff 3.9 to 4% rule. You might be able to outset closer to 5 to 6% and still have a high probability of success, especially for shorter horizons, or if you're spending less later in life. If the answer is no, if you absolutely ne'er lack to align, then yes, you probably need a more conservative get-down charge per unit ilk Morningstar as 3.9% figure for a 30-year retirement. Then conceive about your accounts like buckets. Bucketful 1 to 3 years of basic expenses in hard cash and very short-term bonds. To be honest, Pail 2, 4 to 10 years in higher quality bonds or income funds. Bucket 3, the rest in diversify stocks for growth. What's more, the idea is you pay yourself from Bucketful 1, refill it from Bucket 2, and give Pail tiers time to recover after a rough market. When things get bumpy, that structure can make it emotionally easier to stay invested. Lastly, if your situation is complex, multiple account, large balances, big tax questions, this is where a fee-only fiduciary planner can really earn their keep. What we're seeing is ask them to help you form a withdrawal plan, not just a portfolio. And always call back, what we're doing here on Uncle John Fiscal is instruction, not individualized advice. In fact, your numbers, health, and goals are unique. If you remember nothing else from today's picture, call back this. The 4% rule is not a law. It's a conservative worst-case scenario designed for the unluckiest retiree in the datum. Your retirement doesn't have to be built on fear. The thing is, with a smarter plan, I mean some flexibility, simpleton guardrails, and maybe a bucket scheme, you can much safely spend more, particularly in your go years without taking reckless risks. If this helped you, do 2 things for Uncle Lav. Hit that ilk button so more retire can see this. And in the comments, tell me, are you a maximum safety person or are you open to a flexible withdrawal plan? Now here's where it gets good, of course, and if you're new here, subscribe to Uncle John Financial. Naturally, every week, we break down retirement planning in plain English so you can worry less and enjoy more. I'm Uncle John. Look, take good care of yourself and your money, and I'll see you in the next